Okay, so our job on this worksheet is to find all of the missing angles. So for each problem, we've got 8 angles, and we need to figure out the degrees, so the measure in degrees for each one. Now, the good thing about these angles, and something that we learned yesterday when we looked at all of our different angle relationships, is all of the angles are either going to be equal, so they're going to be congruent, or they're going to be supplementary, which means they're going to add up to 180. So that should make it easier for us to figure out. So looking at number 1, we have to write in the angle measures for 1 through 8. They give us 8 already. Angle 8 is 80 degrees. So I wrote that in here. Angle 8 is 80 degrees. Now I need to use that to help me figure out the other angles. So I'm going to look back at that sheet we filled out the other day. And I remember that vertical angles are congruent, and those are the ones that are opposite of each other. So like 1 and 4, 5 and 8. So they go right across from each other. So I'm going to look at the angle that's right across from angle 8, and that's angle 6, and I know that's also going to be 80 degrees. It's going to be congruent. So angle 6, 80 degrees. Okay, now I'm looking and I see that this is an interior angle, and I know something about alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles are also congruent. So angle 6 is interior and angle 4 is interior, so these are going to be congruent. So angle 4 is going to be 80 degrees. Now, it looks like 8 and 4 are corresponding angles, so they should be equal, which they are. And then angle 6 and angle 2 would be corresponding angles, so they should be equal. So angle 2 is going to be 80 degrees. Okay. Now I've got 4 angles left, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Let's see if we can find any other relationships. Let's look at linear pairs. Linear pairs are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees, and they share a side. So like angle 1 and angle 2. Okay, so together they form a 180 degree angle. Okay, so if I look here at 1 and 2, they form a 180 degree angle. So if angle 2 is 80, that means angle 1 needs to be 100. So together they make 180. So 100 degrees. Now I see that these are vertical angles, and we know vertical angles are equal. So angle 3 has to be 100. And then we've got another pair of alternate interior angles, which are equal, which means angle 5 will be 100. And then we've got one last pair of vertical angles here, which are congruent. So angle 7 is also going to be 100 degrees. Okay, so now if we look at all of our angles, they're either 100 or 80. So all the angles are either equal to each other, all the hundreds are equal, all the 80s are equal, or they are supplementary, they add up to 180. Okay, so we have our 180, 180, 180, 180. Now looking over at number 2, we're going to do the same thing. The numbers may be a little more difficult because we don't have 180 anymore. We have 65. So angle 4 is going to be 65. And I'll start this one off for us. So I'm immediately looking at the vertical angles here. And we know those are equal. So this one's going to be 65 degrees. That's angle 2. And then I see a linear pair here, angle 2 and angle 1, together form 180 degrees. So if we need to figure out what this angle has to be, so when we add it to 65, we get 180. So if I do 180 minus 65, I'm going to get 5, 1, 1. So 115. So angle 1 is going to be 115 because when we add these together, we get 180. Okay, so angle 1 is 115. And now that we have those, remember all the rest of the angles are either going to be equal to each other or supplementary. So you need to figure out which of these angles are going to be 65 and which ones are going to be 115.